Greetings. It is Thursday, July the 9th, in the significant year of 2026. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the Midweek Report. Well, the fireworks from the 4th of July are just about used up here in the United States. All of the decorations are coming down. We made it to 250, had a party, had some fun, but now it's back to business. The fireworks in the Middle East are going off again. The memo of understanding that many people were pinning their hopes on as ending the war in the Persian Gulf between Iran and the United States and Israel, well, that's just about gone. In fact, it pretty much is. It's effectively dead, according to President Trump himself. Yesterday, he called the Iranian regime punks. An appropriate term, though, to be honest, to describe the IRGC of today, just as it was describing them as punks 48 years ago, and all the time since. Many targets have been hit in this conflict, infrastructure this time. This includes power plants. Some of the reports I've been seeing, power plants are being hit. Just about all the port facilities are being obliterated. This is by the United States. I didn't hear much about Israel hitting anything for some reason. They're still back to dropping drones or hitting specific individuals. But by all accounts, the United States has taken off the gloves, if you can believe that. You thought it was gentle before, maybe, but now it seems that they've just given up completely and they're just going to want to obliterate the place. Hitting the power plants is going to really hurt that country. The port facilities, a lot of their food comes into that country, so this is going to hurt not just the regime, but everyone there. Unfortunately, the Iranian people did not rise up. The military did not commit a coup, and now it's going to be just good old nasty warfare. So much for surgical military action. All this is going on, of course, while Iran is burying its long-dead supreme leader and what appears to be hundreds of thousands of people calling for the assassination of Donald Trump. Not a surprise. Are there sleeper cells in the United States? I used to think so. I don't think there are any more, at least not that are effective. They've probably been neutralized in ways that aren't going to make it into the headlines. If the Iranians did have sleeper terrorist cells here, they would have activated them quite some time ago. Now, what does this all mean? Well, what I've been saying all along is this. There is no central authority in Iran. There are many factions now, the Americans hitting and killing off the first two tiers of leadership, if not all three. There's no one in charge, no one person you can negotiate with. That's always a danger when this sort of thing happens. Now, the Iranians have also proven exactly how insane they are. They've been attacking their neighbors. Bahrain, Kuwait are some of the places that have been hit. There have been reports overnight of American bases being hit. We don't know how reliable those are, but they're not beyond the realm of possibilities. Iran still has quite a few punches left. There was even some reports this morning that some of their very few fighter planes are still around, F-5s, which are basically antiques at this point. The Americans and the Israelis completely control the situation on the ground from the air. But to get rid of a country's regime requires troops, boots on the ground, with guns, and with casualties. Now, the U.S. did want to cut a deal. The Iranians are not people you can cut deals with. They are religious fanatics. Again, you can't negotiate with these people. And the Trump administration was obviously quite naive in thinking, well, if I'm willing to do a deal, other people will as well. These are people that are prepared to die for their insane take on divinity. That's beyond anything you can deal with, folks. So where's this going to go? Well, no one's really sure. That's the problem with war. The one thing that is certain is the Iranians are going to do everything they possibly can to control the Straits of Hormuz. Why? Because if they don't do that, they become totally irrelevant. And if they're irrelevant, they're cut off from trade with the rest of the world. They've been bombed into, not the Stone Age, but something a little bit further along. They're dead. They're not going to get a nuclear weapon. Remember, people were saying a week ago, oh, they say they want to get a nuclear weapon now. Well, you can't just wave a magic wand or fly a magic carpet and make it happen. This is now looking like a full-blown war, American style. And that means that there will probably be soldiers put into combat. The American political party, the Republicans, cannot afford to lose this. The November elections are quickly coming, and if the U.S. is bogged down in a Vietnam-style quagmire between now and November, or it looks that way, even though Vietnam was a totally different thing entirely, well, it's not going to look good for anybody. If the Democrats get control of both houses of Congress, not a good time ahead. So the U.S. is going to do everything they can to pulverize Iran at this point. And all the Iranian diaspora who were cheering this on at the surgical attitude the U.S. and Israel were taking, well, they're now going to be quite disappointed, I predict, because their people there are going to go hungry. They're not going to have electricity for anything, including hospitals or general living. It's going to just devolve into a guerrilla war fought from the air, unless the U.S. decides to put soldiers on the ground there. The problem with Iran, it's not like other places the U.S. has fought. It's mountains. It's mountainous to the extreme. Now, one of the historic comparisons we can make is if the United States and the Allies had invaded Japan in 1945. That would have been a real nightmare because Japan is mostly made up of craggy mountains. Yes, I know we see all these nice little temples and cities, but most of Japan is made up of very high, remote mountain passes and peaks. They don't call it the Japan Alps for nothing. And I know, I've been there, I've climbed those mountains. I've even seen gun emplacements left over from World War II. Golden Gate by 48 was what they were saying back then, and it would have cost the lives of 1 million American men. The lives. The casualties would have been higher. And Japanese civilization would have effectively been exterminated. That's if we hadn't dropped the atomic bomb and forced them into an early end to that war. Iran has very, very high mountains as well, but they're just as fanatical as the Japanese were, if not more so. At least enough of them to make a difference. Most of Iran is not fanatical. Most countries are not fanatical. But if this turns into a long, drawn-out fight and ends up becoming a ground war, it is not going to go well for the United States. It won't go well for anybody. So this marks what could be the closing of the door on an opportunity to have regime change peacefully in that country. The U.S. does not have the resources for a sustained war. Neither does Israel. No one does these days. It's a worrying time. It would have been nice if the Iranian people had decided to live up to expectations and make some changes. Mr. Khomeini, who was killed in the initial attacks back in February, well, he's now being buried. What was left of him, the story was there wasn't a whole lot to recover, shall we say, without going into detail. That's why they didn't mind having the funeral for such a long time. His son doesn't seem to be around anywhere. Maybe he's dead too, but you need someone to turn it off. You need someone to negotiate with. You need one central authority, and I don't think that's going to happen. Look for things to get a little bit worse, sadly. The other story I want to talk about today are data centers. Yes, data centers. You're going to hear more and more of that. That's a bigger threat than what's going on in the Middle East right now. There have been reports this morning that a very large data center belonging to Meta, the Facebook people, well, that's now poisoning water. That's the story coming out. That's not a big surprise. I've been traveling around different parts of Virginia, West Virginia, and even into Pennsylvania as of late. And I've been seeing locations where they're planning on building these things places with beautiful streams and waterways, farmland that's been growing food for centuries, peace and quiet, and it's all going to be changed so we can have artificial intelligence and a surveillance state. No, things don't look good for us. Our heroes are in trouble, and that means all of us. It's like one of the old comic books when things look real dark, things look really difficult, and our good guys are wondering how they're going to make it through. Somehow they always do, with varying levels of realism, but I'm not really sure people are up to it right now. Sure, we had a great 4th of July celebration. We've had some fun, and we've had 250 years, but if we're going to make it last longer, we're going to have to show the same sort of backbone that the people that created the United States had, and willing to sacrifice like they did. This does not mean that we should start organizing militias to march on Washington, D.C., and I don't think that would work anyways if people were willing to do it. But we're going to have to get organized, and we're going to have to be very, very, very effective in how we exert ourselves politically and economically. Otherwise, we aren't going to make it. This place is really going to go down the tubes. We have millions, tens of millions of illegals in this country, many of whom are criminals. None of them wish to acclimate. We have people overseas that want to destroy us. We have military bases around the globe we can't afford, and every day more and more of our enemies are calling for our blood. So what do we do? Well, there's no grand strategy that I'm aware of. The only one I can think of is to look within. That sounds a little bit mystical for the headlines today, but really think about it. Look within. What can you do? What would you do? What should you do? But the answer to that is simple. What you should do, what you must do, is something. Anything. Just do. The rest will take care of itself. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies. No matter what corner of the planet they are in, they're still enemies. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, Clown World, the deep state, and artificial intelligence must be destroyed. And to my fellow Virginians, sic semper tyrannis. Good day.